Most people spend their entire lives working hard, earning decent money, and still ending up broke. Not because they didn't earn enough, not because they were unlucky, but because no one ever taught them how to think about money the right way. There is a quiet but powerful shift that separates people who build lasting wealth from people who stay stuck in the same financial cycle for decades. That shift is learning to think in assets instead of expenses. Once this idea clicks, nothing about money looks the same again. The difference between an asset and an expense. Here is the brutal truth about how most people spend money. They buy things that disappear. They pay rent and get nothing back. They upgrade their phones every year. They lease cars they can't afford to own. Every dollar goes out the door and never returns. That is expense thinking. It feels like living, but financially, it is slowly sinking. An asset is completely different. An asset is something that holds value, grows over time, or generates income while someone sleeps. A rental property collects rent every month. A stock portfolio grows with the market. A business brings in revenue even on a holiday. The key distinction is simple. An expense takes money away, and an asset brings money back. The confusion starts when people mistake expensive things for assets. Take a car. Most people consider a car an asset because it sits in their driveway and they own it. But a car loses value from the moment it is driven off the lot. And registration every single year. It takes money out of the pocket and never puts any back in. That is not an asset. That is a liability wearing the costume of an asset. Robert Kiyosaki, the author who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Picture, but also there's a mindset and a skill set difference. So what we're going to be talking about today is, basically my poor dad
Explained this concept in a way that changed how millions of people think about money. His argument was simple: rich people buy assets first, and poor people buy liabilities while believing they are buying assets. A primary home, he argued, is not an income-producing asset if it is never rented out or sold for a profit. It is a place with a mortgage, maintenance bills, property taxes, and insurance. It costs money to keep it running. Now consider what Warren Buffett did differently. Buffett bought his home in Omaha, Nebraska in 1958 for $31,000. He still lives in it today. While others were upgrading homes and accumulating mortgage debt to signal success, Buffett was pouring capital into businesses and stocks that generated compounding returns for decades. He chose assets over status, and that single philosophy helped him become one of the wealthiest people in recorded history. The mindset shift is not about being cheap or never enjoying life. It is about asking one question before every significant financial decision: will this bring money in, or will this take money out? How wealthy people think before they spend. When most people get a raise, they upgrade their lifestyle. Bigger apartment, newer car, more restaurant dinners, premium subscriptions. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it silently destroys wealth potential. The extra income that could have been invested disappears into a more expensive version of the same life. Wealthy people think differently. They ask what an opportunity costs before they say yes to spending. Every dollar spent on something that does not appreciate in value is a dollar that could have grown inside an investment. That is not a theory. It is the actual framework behind how generational wealth is built, largely through her cosmetics brand. Did not just spend her early earnings on luxury goods. She built a business. She created an asset. Her brand produced income without requiring her to trade hours for dollars every day. The income came from ownership, not just from labor. That is the difference between an employee mindset and an asset mindset. He transitioned from recording music, which is a service and a product, to owning music catalogs, a champagne brand, a sports agency, art, and real estate. Each acquisition was not a purchase made for status. It was a strategic move to own things that generated value independently of his personal effort. His net worth crossed $1 billion, not because he performed more shows, but because he kept buying assets. This is the power of thinking like an owner instead of a consumer. A consumer sees a luxury watch and thinks about how impressive it looks. An owner sees that same amount of money and asks how many income-generating assets it could purchase instead. Neither person is wrong about what they want, but only one of them is building financial freedom. There is a practical framework that financial experts and wealth builders alike have used for decades. Before any significant purchase, 3 questions deserve honest answers. First, will this thing still have value in 5 years? Second, does it produce any income or appreciation during that time? Third, is there a smarter way to deploy this money so it grows instead of shrinks? These questions are not about restriction, they are about intention. How to start thinking in assets starting today. The good news is that shifting from expense thinking to asset thinking does not require being rich already. It requires changing what gets prioritized, and it starts with the smallest decisions made on the most ordinary days. The first step is to understand what is already owned and what that ownership is worth. Most people have never calculated their net worth, the total value of everything owned minus everything owed. Sitting down and doing that calculation is like turning on the lights in a dark room. It shows exactly where the financial picture stands and where the biggest leaks are. That single act of awareness creates momentum. The second step is to redirect money from pure consumption to things that hold or grow in value. This does not mean never eating at a restaurant again, the next impulse purchase, or the next subscription service. There is a conscious pause. A portion of available income gets redirected into something that works: index funds, real estate, a side business, dividend, paying stocks, or even developing a marketable skill that increases earning power. Did not build a media empire from nothing by accident. She invested heavily in developing her communication, empathy, and storytelling abilities at a time when most people around her were just looking for jobs. Those skills became the foundation of a brand worth billions. A skill that earns more income is an asset, and unlike a car or a gadget, it cannot be repossessed. The third step is to build the habit of paying assets first. Before paying for entertainment, dining, or luxury, a fixed portion of income goes toward investment or savings. This is not a new idea, it is one of the oldest principles in personal finance. But very few people actually do it consistently. The reason is that expense thinking feels immediate and rewarding. Asset thinking requires patience. It requires believing that what is planted today will grow into something extraordinary later. Has always prioritized reinvesting into businesses and technology. When his early company Zip2 sold, he did not buy a mansion and retire. He poured the money into XCOM, which became PayPal. When PayPal sold, he divided the money between Tesla, SpaceX, and SolarCity. He treated capital not as something to spend, but as fuel to keep building assets that grew exponentially. The final and perhaps most important piece of this mindset is understanding that time is the most powerful ingredient in the entire equation. Assets grow. Compound interest rewards consistency. Someone who starts investing in assets at 22 with modest amounts will almost always end up wealthier than someone who waits until 40 and tries to rush the process. Time cannot be bought back. The most dangerous financial trap is believing that wealth will begin once income is higher. It will not. Higher income without an asset mindset just produces higher expenses. The people who change their financial future are the ones who decide, right now, at whatever income level they are at, to start asking a different question. Not what do I want to buy, but what do I want to own that will work for me? That is the real shift. That is how wealth is actually built, not through earning more, but through thinking differently about every dollar that passes through both hands.